more about moving towards having a tool that we can use to capture who we are as Ngaarda.
2006, I think Juluwarlu TV was probably at its peak. Frank Rijavec brought, I think, about 16 trainees across.
Driving this particular project is Frank Rijavec, you know.
It starts not with cameras and with media making or even a filmmaker with me. It starts with community leaders, people with a vision and a drive to do something different.
My biggest challenge is to get Ngaarda Ngali to walk through that door and sign up and stay.
It was more about the passion, not the paycheck.
Michael Woodley, and I'm the CEO for the Njibandi Nation Limited. Well, Ngaarda Media started back then. It wasn't known as Juluwarlu Media. You know, that's where the media idea came from. It was through the idea and the desire of wanting to, have our own media, to give our people, the voice, to talk about our things related to First Nation people and Roban people at that time. We applied for a TV license, which we called JTV at that time. That then established Juluwarlu Media, and then several years after that, I think we were then successful in getting Juluwarlu Radio, and that kind of, in a nutshell, established the Roban media structure, which is now known as Ngaarda Media.
I'm Neil Turner. I'm the manager of Pilbara and Kimberley Aboriginal Media, or PACM. I've been here in Broome 28 years, since I was invited across in 1996 to help set up what was called the BRACS Revitalisation Strategy back then for 11 communities in the Pilbara and Kimberley regions. We had Jigalong and Yandiara as communities in the Pilbara. Our first chairman when PACM got incorporated, or actually prior to incorporation, was Keith Jug Lethbridge from Jigalong. He moved to Yandiara, and then he went across to work with the Gumala Aboriginal Corporation. They established a radio network, a sister network to the PACM network, which had been set up from the year 2000. We advised on what it would take to set it up technically, to apply for a license and so on. And the idea was that Roban would be able to feed programming into the Gumala network, which was based in Top Price back then. 2005, we were also looking at setting up Juluwarlu TV. We're keen to get an ICTV transmission happening in Roban with the possibility of inserting local content, and they were establishing a video production group. Jug actually moved across from Gumala to be with JTV, Channel 35 I think it was. I've still got the t-shirt from way back then. Also Tyson Mowerin was on that crew back in those days.
Obviously Juluwarlu started with documenting and recording the elders, Njibandi elders mainly. It started in this place, Ngurwana community. So the passion for capturing history, it's always been, close to my heart. We moved to Roban, started working with the elders. The thought and idea came from Juju Frank Rijavec, who been with me and Michael when we first started recording Njibandi history. We did a project called the Two Rivers Trip, documenting the Fortescue River, stories in the Fortescue River with the Njibandi elders, and stories of the Sherlock River with the Ngaluma elders. And then that birthed him to come back and work with me and Michael to do more of the oral history working. And then then we started Juluwarlu TV.
My point of entry into the story comes in 1987 when we first came to the community. I'd been working up at Strelly with the Strelly mob on How the West Was Lost, which was a film about the strike. I met a guy called Paul Roberts who knew someone working with Aboriginal police relations in Roban, and this was when the police were trying to reform how they were policing in Roban after the death of John Pat and the huge upset in the community, that tragedy of a 16-year-old boy. I came into the community as a filmmaker. I mean, I was well past university and had been working in film for over 10 years then. But I guess, you know, I was always outside the mainstream industry, always was interested in just following ideas and stories. Could do justice to the medium that I'd chosen as my vocation.
Kia ora, my name is Tangiora Hinaki. I'm a Māori woman from the eastern tribes of Aotearoa. And 17 years ago, I moved here with my family, my husband and my 6 children at the time, in a bus. Due to the Pilbara, fast forward to when we were living at Cleaverville Beach, and I was driving into town, I saw an opportunity, the Hinaki family, to get involved in a film and television workshop. So I was homeschooling at the time. I thought, what a fantastic opportunity. So we got to get behind the camera, we learned about storyboarding, and we finished a short movie about stranger danger. Later that week we got to showcase it at a Roburn community event, and it was there that I met Michael Woodley, who introduced himself to me and then asked me if me and my family would be open to volunteering at Ngaarda Radio. Never thought I was interested in it or even filming, but it started this passion and love affair. And so from there, Michael Woodley and Lorraine Coppin invited me to be part of a filming experience out at Wuyamari, which was a seed ceremony, and then I was hooked on filming and editing. So I went from radio to film. Ended up leaving. I found an opportunity at ABC Pilbara. That's where I got the journalism training. And then 7.5 years ago, I came back as the manager, CEO. It was the best decision that I have made in my media career. I feel like I was promoted because I'm working with First Nations people. I'm doing human interest stories, stories that I really love, and my cup is full.
Had an experienced country, travelling country, being in country, and they organised this kids camp. They said, come out on the trip. Deirdre was out on the Maitland River at Juluwarlu, together with the help of some other supporters they had. They got together a truckload of kids. They borrowed the church truck, took a couple of dozen kids out there. And this was the first time, this was the first trip that they had done like this for years, and they were remembering from when they were kids, going back almost a generation when they used to go out in the yellow bus. That was my entry into storytelling from a community point of view, not from... And so that was, I think, a remarkable event for both me and the community, because what happened is that I borrowed an old VHS porta pack from the Department of Community Welfare. I took that out and videoed the camp and made a little film called The Kids Culture Camp. So that was the first media that I was involved in then, and it was the first community-directed media. Bob brought out a generator and we hooked it up, and we had a TV set and we played back what we shot every day so they could see it. Every night, going up and down the rivers, the kids playing, swimming. The real breakthrough was the guys got together. It was Roger and his dad, Solomon, were the main organisers, and David Daniel, Tootsie's husband. And they organised these Nunda, and some of the other older men came to, Juluwarlu and old Cheedy. They organised, I think, some of the first Nunda that they had seen again for many years from a generation back. So it was a seminal event, and I was lucky enough to be there. So that's really, if you're looking at the seeds of media, community-directed media, that's where it starts. So it starts not with cameras and with media making or even a filmmaker with me. It starts with community leaders, people with a vision and a drive to do something different.
It was an accident that I got into radio. It wasn't something that I planned or wanted to do. I just, the two people that I met there that was working at the radio at that time, Kuri G and his partner, Katie, they were there at the time, and they asked me if I was interested in coming and having a go on radio. And she did say that I had a nice voice for radio, and I said, all right, I'll give it a try. So I did.
I take credit for giving Marion Cheedy some of her first training on the panel, and Tootsie Daniels there as well. And we were training in both television and radio on that occasion. So it's great to see Marion's still there, and she's consistently at her game to be able to breakfast show herself for quite a few years now, and holding that brilliantly. The development with a lot of other broadcasters coming on, and development of a news service, which very few of our stations in the region managed to pull off single-handedly. So we've been grateful on the Packham network to be able to access the Ngaarda news and pair that up with the National Indigenous Radio Service news, and to share that news gathering around the Kimberley as well as the Pilbara. Great to see also Ngaarda Media getting strong in the online space and small video online content, coming along to national Indigenous remote festivals and Converge, and joining in the national scene.
And so Neil and a group of people used to come down to Roban to teach us how to operate the board, how to work the mic and all that stuff, yeah. I don't think we did much back then. I remember us just coming, playing music on the radio and talking a little bit, and then that was it. I can't remember how many times that I spent there, but it wasn't much because we didn't have the hours that we have now.
Spread our wings where we engage other language groups to work with us. I think that's where Uncle Juk Leffridge came on board, people like Tyson Marin. Originally it was Indigenous training, but I think Michael and Frank worked with the funding body to employ other Indigenous identities, like yourself, Tangiora, and your sister, Mahina. You was the first Maori girls that came to work with us.
Mahinarangi is my sister's name. She and Hayden Woodley, which is Michael's oldest son, they were a dynamic duo on Ngaarda Radio. So her and Hayden would have full-on conversations in Injibandi. And that was really impressive, not only to me, but also to the community, because she would walk down the street, have full-on conversations in Injibandi language with elders, and that cemented her rather into being welcomed into the Injibandi family.
Well, Hayden and mine have worked really well. Like you said, Māori girl coming into the community. Well, the thing that we were amazed with her, she picked up the language really quick, you know. Oh boy, you couldn't speak in Injibandi in front of her, you know, because she would know, you know. But come back to you as well, Tangiora, you know, you and your sister both started with us as well, you know, as trainees as well, you know, in the project. So it's a long history there for all of us, you know. And I think the success of it really is continue to sort of bring people in and whatever stuck, you know. So you stuck there for a long time. You're still there now, right? So, you know, other people come and go on and stuff like that. But I think they all contributed really to the Ngaarda Media brand, you know, and the local voice. And good for for some of the people to stick around or even come back, you know. It's been a really good journey, I think, you know. And I can't believe it's 20 years, you know.
You being Ngaardas yourself, you know, even though you're from another country, you still can relate to us as Ngaarda. So it didn't matter to us. If we could help you by training you and in media, and you know, vice versa, you might be able to help our people.
You know, it was controversial to take on two Māori women, an Injibandi organisation, an Aboriginal media hub. Michael Woodley and Lorraine always, you know, stood by us and would wanga to other people that had concerns that they're Ngaarda too. They're Ngāra Ngali from Aotearoa, New Zealand. We have similar histories. We were colonised, language was taken from us, you know, stolen generation. So, you know, all of those challenges that we went through connects us today, and not just us, but, you know, Ngāra Ngali around the world.
It was really good for Juluwarlu to be wanting to get a local voice happening on television and to feed into that ICTV service. So in 2006, I think Juluwarlu TV was probably at its peak. Frank Rijavec brought, I think, about 16 trainees across to the festival we were holding in Balgo. So it was great. We signed up a whole lot of Packer members there, who many of whom we haven't seen since. But he had a great young crew, lots of training going on, lots of good productions coming out of Juluwarlu TV and getting out there to ICTV. Well, and back then it was only Galari and Juluwarlu and Roban who were transmitting ICTV. ICTV is now in Alice Springs as well, but that's only been in the last few years. So we were pioneering over this way in terms of trying to bring ICTV to town audiences who didn't have direct-to-home satellite reception.
The person who should take credit for driving this particular project is Frank Rijavec, the guy who produced and directed Exile and The Kingdom. We employed him for about 2 years, I think, around about that time, 2 to 4 years maybe. And we employed him specifically to come and work on media stuff in the recording, area, and the ideas grew from there. So he's the one that then sort of took the ideas and drove it and applied for the license, and then set up the structure and more support for funding to support Roban locals to be a part of the media establishment. Training came after that shortly, with support from the WI program in Roban with NIFL. So things all came together and gelled together, but Frank was the main instigator really in putting all of those things together. Ideas that Lorraine and I sort of said, look, I think it's good for us to have our own voice. Led to the led to the establishment and giving some of those local people opportunities to work on media.
All credit has to go to Michael and Lorraine and the Juluwarlu Corporation, who'd been already going, I believe, quite a few years, maybe 10 years before radio and television got added into their enterprise. But with that original concept of being able to record and archive Yindyabarndi culture and language, and have a community facility to create media in language. So it's their initial concept and inspiration and hard work to actually create Juluwarlu Aboriginal Corporation that set the basis for the media developments we see today. So as long as that doesn't get lost sight, and as long as the media is still firmly grounded in grassroots community and in that prime objective of recording culture and language and maintaining that for future generations, that gives us the strength for remote Indigenous media generally.
Okay, so the Gumala Network, 7.5 years ago when I started, I didn't realise at the time that we had taken over the Gumala Network. So I thought that we were just broadcasting to Roban. It wasn't until my second year that it started to filter down to me. Don't forget, there was only 2 full-time workers. And I was like, oh, what? So we have 12 transmissions. So 5 years prior to that, so you can do the math, we had taken over the Gumala Network, sadly because of a financial strain that Gumala was going through, and we inherited the Ngaarda Network. Once I realised what had happened, I then lobbied the Aboriginal Minister of the federal government at the time, Ken Wyatt, to bring it to his attention that we were still getting funded as a standalone Roban community station. And so we were successful in doubling our funding.
Talking about growth, it was more about the passion, not the paycheck. So we didn't have much money, Juluwarlu, and it was always living off funding and stuff, but we always found a way, just collecting the information. And we didn't get much mining resources money back then. More about moving towards having a tool that we can use to capture who we are as Ngaarda. And giving that to the community is one of our legacy, I think, for what the elders gave to me and Michael. It's all about creating a tool that captured who we are as Ngaarda.
Well, the native title one, for us really, because that's the most important thing for us. Is the legal recognition that we have to our country, and that's been recognised, through a decision from the federal court, and Ngaarda Media was there to capture that, and the emotion of the people and the hard journey to get there. I mean, we put that claim in 2003, and got our determination in 2017. The judge coming out on country, the military, then to deliver that judgment to us. So that's a special moment for us as well. We're giving evidence on country, for our country, for our people, and then to have that sort of judgment given to us on our country is a special moment for the Yijimani people and the nation. So it was good to have our own media there as well to capture that. If you're going way back when we first started, we never had planned for that.
So Iñat, it's one of our principles that we value, especially myself and my husband Michael. I look after you, you look after me, we look after community, or Ngora looks after us. And we're always generous people, all Ngāras, not only Yijimani Ngāras, but Ngāras all around the world. We found that we're always genuine in what we say and what we give, we never take. We don't take for granted our partners, our people. We don't take resources. There's always time we give.
So when I started at Ngaarda Media 7.5 years ago, I had just taken over from Michael Nakakis, bless him. He did a short stint there. Before that, it was Kate Wilson. Kate Wilson and her team were instrumental in getting the tower up in Karratha, because we didn't have 92.1 FM then. So everybody has played a big role into bringing the success that we see today. My success, and I suppose driving the vision, was to consistency happening. There wasn't any daily breakfast program, once a week national show with Marion Cheedy, so she was casual at the time. Pretty much an ABC model, but through a black lens. And what I mean by that is that, we look for our First Nations experts in the field. We focus on First Nation angles. The breakfast show became consistent. People started to realise, wow, they're on every day. We start tuning in. And then because we were creating content, we were putting it up on our Facebook page. So we went from 1,100, it just kept growing. So we now have 33,000. We've just clicked over to 33,000 followers today. We're the only Aboriginal media hub in the north that has an outside radio broadcast. So we're really proud of that. We got to use it, this year at NAIDOC Week, and it will also be an education tool in the future. As we visit schools in remote Western Australia. So these are the opportunities that have opened up to us. But I must say, when I first came on board, I thought I was just going to be a content creator. I didn't have confidence to think that I could be a manager, but you just don't know if you don't know. It was all there. Michael and Lorraine really brought that out of me.
In terms of trying to formalise it and build an infrastructure with, good gear and some sort of training process. Yes, it was Tyson was one of the very first. Glenn Toby was there, Lyle Wally was there, Tanelia was there, yes, and a sister. They were all precious. They all came in there and they played their real role. A lot of people came in and came out again, but that's the way things go. And so that's when I came back for a year in 2005.
Well, we had a lot of people that came through that, through that organisation. I mean, we thought of, with trainees like Tyson Marin, Glenn Tovey, Glenn Lee, Lyle Wally, Linda James was one of them, Jug, who we was doing radio in Tom Price for Gumala Radio. Left that position and came and, worked for us for about, I think 12 months and assisted us and to train some of those locals up as well. Obviously, Kate and Gary, came through, and Kingsley done some work there as well, and always contributed. Andy Daniels as well, who contributed.
By the end of that year, we were starting to talk to TAFE, and we set up a process that was a partnership between Juluwarlu and TAFE, where we had, I think, about 13 trainees. And it was on the back of that Michael, as the CEO of Juluwarlu at that time, won the WA Businessman of the Year of under 40, which was because it was a remarkable thing. We had, a lot of trainees there, and they carried on, and there's lots of media that we still have that they made. It was called JTV, then Juluwarlu TV.
So we had a few people come and sort of left the organisation and got their feet wet, or beak wet, so to speak, in terms of wanting to either be a broadcaster or do some filming or do some acting, script writing, storytelling, so things like that. Look, it was an experience for all of us, really. It was again taking the bubble out of Robin, so to speak, right, and kind of opening it up to things that no one thought that we could do. You know what I mean? And Exile and The Kingdom was a fantastic documentary, obviously, because the first time we saw our people acting, telling a story on the history of Robin and things like that, but they were also on the telly. Came across really strong, really proud of who they are and telling some of that history. So that was the kind of the push as well, to lead us in that. And the documentation work Lorraine and I started back in '98 with my grandfather here, and then incorporated in 2000. Was again the catalyst to continue, telling that story. The Ijibandi story, or Ngaarda story in general, is something that should be more celebrated, should be more told. Because again, it's most people don't know this. So the broader Australian, the broader public knowing about First Nations people culture and history and how they feel about things, I think it only sort of adds to the reconciliation process and closing the gap.
Yindjibarndi culture, one of our principles is family, creating this family of people that helps us with growing our community and our kids, next generation especially.
I remember a lot of fond memories, I look back at those things now and there's a lot of elders that we've been, who's now gone, going to places as well for the first time with elders, because some places you can't get because, it's a pastoral station or a mining lease or things like that, or some places, most young people never been taught, or this generation have been taught by the elders. So it was good to go there with them and document it, and then you always, it's like putting a picture together in a jigsaw puzzle, another piece being added to your identity, as an Ijibandi. And that was the most important thing, I think, about those sort of journeys and trips, so something special really.
My biggest challenge is to get Ngāra Ngali to walk through that door and sign up and stay. I understand that media isn't for everyone, but it is a powerful tool for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to use so that their voice is heard, especially when we think about closing the gap targets, when we think about First Nations people, the people of the land, making up 3% of the population. Myself, as a migrant, I've come into this beautiful country to make a life here, but much respect goes to the first people of the land. I want to see more Ngāra Ngali. I need a plan to hand over my role, and I would love for a Pilbara Ngāra to come alongside me, to shadow me, so that when it's time for me to move on, Ngaarda Media will be in good hands.
Oh, well, I wish Ngaarda Media all the best in the future, and to keep building on those strong foundations that we've witnessed from the earliest days, and to really keep that Pilbara content coming out into the national scene and on the Packham network.
Take this opportunity to thank all the people who came along and started this journey, especially Juju Frank and his wife Nolene. Always been part of the project, our project, from way back when Exile and The Kingdom with old people. They're still with us. Other people on the journey who came with us, especially yourself, Tangiora, still with us today, sharing the passion, growing with us, growing the community, growing with our people, having your family around us, growing Ngaarda Media with you. So that's important.
But this just goes to show, I think, the evolution of change and development and consistency and how we embrace technology and, again, the right people as well, You played a big role in that as well, Staying with the organisation, continue to grow it, take the vision forward. So all of that stuff, right? They all come together, they play a part, and everybody has a contribution to it, and that's what makes the local media organisation, Ngaarda Media now, shining lights in our community of success, of First Nation success anyways.
TV is going to be good, but you need people, like I said, confident to step into, have people that's there to support them, to help them grow personality, learn to read and write.
Ngaarda Media, 20 years, 2004 was when the brainchild was birthed. It was when I believe we were registered with ACMA. We are a reputable station. We've got Ngarangali calling us from Kalgoorlie, wanting to tell their stories, from Bolu, Perth, wanting to tell us stories. Because of our deadly videography and what we do in that department, we are going to be launching the Ngaarda TV streaming service. So that's our breaking news.
Well, I guess if you're celebrating 20 years, you're celebrating community and leadership. That's got to come back to the heart of it. And so if you're making a film that's celebrating that, you're celebrating those people and the elders that go back. And for me, you're celebrating friendships that really mattered, and you're celebrating one of the best friends I ever had, Roger Solomon.